Hi guys, today we're going to be making some really truly delicious bread. You just need active dry yeast, salt, some kind of oil. You'll need a little sugar, flour, parmesan cheese. This is garlic, believe it or not. And what are we going to put on top? Butter. One last thing, and exactly right, 2¼ cups of warm water. That is 110 to 115 degrees Fahrenheit. Here comes my recipe book, but I'm only loosely following this. Guess what? Surprise, I'm making 3 loaves of bread. Oh my gosh, I'm trying to do this part so fast so that it will be the right temperature. But spoiler alert, this round of yeast actually didn't make it, and it was dead, and I had to do it again because if I had baked the bread with that, it would not have risen. The recipe calls for 1/4 ounce of active dry yeast, which I happen to know is 2¼ teaspoons. And the way I know that is because I looked it up. I did not film the yeast that failed to activate because I was pissed, but I wish I did because it would have been a good thing to show. And if it ever happens again, I will show you how you can tell when your yeast is dead. Anyway, one thing I did wrong that I don't want you to forget is putting in your sugar with your yeast. You want to put in that 1/2 teaspoon of sugar. Oh, this is me realizing I have to find 3 more bowls. Are you kidding me? Wow, I was actually kind of stuck on it for a long time. Actually, this is a hilarious example of what it's like when I encounter any obstacle and I just stop for a minute. I'm just in denial. I'm just like, there's no way. Are you kidding me? There's no way. So you want to put the 3 tablespoons of sugar into this new bowl. I'm going to do that for all 3 of the breads that I'm making. This is my preferred way to like triple a recipe. As you can see, I'd rather just do it 3 separate times. It feels like less mental effort. Now 1 tablespoon of salt. Guess what color my salt is? Let me tell you, you do not want to miss this step. You will end up so disappointed in your bread. Especially in our household, we are big fans of salt. Ooh, here comes the flour. This is why you need your bowls to be big enough to handle all this flour. You'll never believe what's about to happen to me. It is so ridiculous. Here it comes. Snap for no reason. But you know me, I ain't no quitter. Here I go, making it work anyway. That might actually be an environmentalist mindset if you think about it. I'll keep reusing this ragged plastic. See, it all connects, and I say, your algorithm. And actually, I'm gonna bring up mental health once we start kneading the dough too, but I'm not bringing it up yet because I'm not gonna lie to you, the measuring of the ingredients is kind of tedious, but you know, it's a part of the process. Have I mentioned I'm a BJ's girl? So don't worry, we're not out of flour. Last one, 3 cups of flour to start it out. So close to the fun part of making bread. And luckily, this yeast is actually looking alive. Oh my gosh, now the fun part. Add handfuls of flour until it makes a nice dough. If you're wondering what all this background noise is, here in the voiceover, my son is enjoying a scoot with one of his wooden toys all over the floor. So that is that. But you want to knead this dough for 8 to 10 minutes. So you might want to, watch something, listen to something that you'll enjoy. During these parts, I was actually watching a video from Kaylin Nicholson, who I've actually been watching since I was like 19 or 20 years old. Actually, it's so insane. And call it parasocial if you want to, but it makes me happy to see her happy. Back to the intense empathy thing, so that's why I'm smiling so much throughout these parts. Also, let me bend your ear for a moment about the benefits of bread making in relation to mental health. I'm sure you can see to start like how satisfying this looks. It's like such a nice sensory experience, and I am such a sucker for a good sensory experience. It's very tactile, very grounding. Like once you get to this step of the bread making process, it's very soothing. And that is definitely something that makes it a fun thing to do throughout the winter, over the fall, when it's cold out and you just want a cozy evening or day in. As you can see, it's tedious as hell, but that can help you occupy your time in a pretty satisfying way. And in the end, if you're like me, you'll end up with between 1 and 3 very delicious loaves of bread. I just adore the feminine art of bread baking. There's a lot of intuition, a lot of using your senses to feel when things are at the correct consistency. And that consistency is just so fun. Now we just want to put some oil in a bowl. Don't forget that hopefully this dough will double in size, so you want a big boy. You just want to slap her in there and turn her around. So your whole loaf is nice and coated with oil. I'm just gonna repeat these steps, and by the way, I forgot to mention how fun this part is. It's like if you ever made that cornstarch thing, it's almost like that. The consistency's crazy. Definitely don't miss your opportunity to give it a little pat, pat, pat. And while I create this dough, let me tell you a little bit more about the mental health benefits of baking bread. So in addition to being a nice way to occupy your time, baking bread is a great stress relief. Engaging in creative and artistic activities, which bread baking would certainly be considered one of, actually reduces cortisol, and we all know how bad cortisol is, am I right? In this video, I'm heavily adapting a basic homemade bread recipe, and I feel like that's the heart of bread making, is you can also just kind of improvise, add different flavors, make different designs. It's something I haven't quite, gotten into yet, but that I'm very interested in trying. Creating braided and intricate designs in the bread. It's such a cool art form. There was actually once an older woman in my life who I'd like to honor by talking about for a moment. Her name was Barbara Van Pelt, and she was the sweetest woman. She was a member of our church and a friend to my grandmother, and she would sometimes take my aunts and uncles and I individually for these sort of mentorship sessions. I really think she was the most incredible adult in my life at that time. So I would have been in 2nd grade attending a very small fundamentalist Christian private school. I was having a hard time. That's actually how I'd just like to sum up my whole childhood. I was having a hard time. But anyway, I really threw myself into school, and I was very high achieving in school. And we'd been learning all about poetry, and we would memorize these long stanza rhyming poems. And I was the queen at rhyming. I would go around, I'd be like, give me a topic, I'll make a poem. But sweet Mrs. Van Pelt saw some potential in me, and she was convinced that I would grow up to be a great poet. She was so encouraging of it, and she loved poetry, like adults do. So one day she had me out mentoring, and she said, "A leaf falls. Is that a poem?" And I was pretty good at tests, and we had just been studying this, so I confidently told her, nope. But she said, actually it is. There's beauty and art all around us. And I think at the time I was like, lady, it didn't even rhyme. But I still think of it all these years later, and she's passed now. She was a very old woman when I knew her, but she was such a force of good in this world, and I feel like I can really feel her in those moments of surprise art, which I'd say is really what I'm trying to do here on YouTube in general. Whether I'm being goofy or serious, I'm just trying to make some art about, things that are important to me. Which feels like as good a time as any to talk about something else important to me, which is bread. What a gift that we can make something so good out of so few ingredients. And these ingredients are so versatile. I mean, think about like tortillas, pancakes, different types of bread. Ooh, pumpkin bread. Just think about those things. Maybe we can have like a moment of gratitude for bread here together while we're making this. Especially if you've ever, had a parting with bread due to like something unhealthy. Like I've gone years parted from bread related to like diet culture and eating disorders, which I'll talk about some other time, but it's just such a joy to not have that be the case anymore, And so if you've ever also had a messy relationship with beautiful, wonderful bread, if any external forces have gotten in the way of that relationship, just know you can always get it back. And a great way to get it back is to get right in there and make some beautiful bread with your bare hands. And something that's fun about doing this is you can try all kinds of different ways of doing it. Like watch this. Ooh, wow. Messy, but that's okay because we're just gonna keep adding flour to it until it turns into a ball of dough. Now, my approach with things like bread making or domestic tasks in general is it's actually okay to just like take your time. Like if you're gonna enjoy it more if you do it a certain way, even if that way is not the very most efficient way, it's okay to do it that way that satisfies you. I have definitely been such a slave to productivity before that I just couldn't do anything for fun. And it's like really lame, okay? We're not doing that anymore. We can literally live our good little lives and bake bread and take our time with it. If you are in a position to be baking bread in an oven, to have the ingredients to make the bread in the oven, you are so lucky, and I hope that you can feel the warm feeling of gratitude for such things. Having the time and the ability to make some bread is very lucky, and if you're watching this video and even thinking about baking some bread, you're probably very lucky like me. And feel how good it feels to just let that be enough. If you are like me, which I recognize not everyone watching this necessarily is, because I've found myself in a place in my life where I actually have just so much privilege, and in a way I really do feel so grateful to have kind of experienced both, because I'm so hyper aware of how good my life is now, to just have the peace and the ability to bake 3 huge loaves of bread. Oops, did I just reveal that they're gonna be huge? Anyway, I just think it's so easy. I know it's so easy to take things like this for granted, but I just want to feel this peace and let it radiate forward. Wow, look at these 3 beauties. And if you have a bench scraper, right now would actually be such an ideal time to use it. Cover that baby up with a towel that won't stick to it and put it somewhere nice and warm. Ooh, look at these in a nice toasty spot. And you're gonna want to let them stay there for about 2 hours. This is why making bread takes so long, but ooh, look at them, they're puffing up. This is just a little sneak peek. This is about 1 hour in. Alright, it's 2 hours in, and now it's time to punch down the dough, knead it one more time, and then we're gonna have it rise a second time. This is also the point at which I'll put in a half a cup of Parmesan cheese and a tablespoon of garlic. And guess who you're about to see pop his head up to see what we're doing? Pop! That's Echo. He's about as tall as the counter, so you'll see his tail from time to time. He's such a delight. He's a husky mix, and he's very vocal. I'd like to show you guys one of these days the way that this dog has particular songs that he belts his heart out to. I'm sure this won't be the last time that you see him because he likes to stay close. So right here, I'm just kneading the plain bread. Of the 3 loaves I'm making, 1 of them is plain and 2 of them are garlic parmesan. So it seems like now during our second kneading is as good a time as any to return to the topic of bread making as a sacred feminine art. I have talked before at absolute length about what I mean by the terms masculine and feminine, and I wanted to tell you a little bit more about why bread falls into that idea of a feminine art. Like, one way that I have heard it described is that things that get you into your senses tend to be more closely associated with the feminine. And again, this isn't about like whether you are a male or female. Everyone can benefit from adding that kind of quote-unquote feminine energy into their life. In fact, I do think like maybe there's something so good for men about baking. My husband has been getting into baking more and more lately, and it's just so sweet to see him do. We have entered the era of letting boys be soft, right? For the love of God. Really hoping so for my son's sake, I'll tell ya. Anyways, some of the reasons that bread making is considered more feminine is, like I said, like it's a very sensory experience. You can see like I'm getting right in there with my hands. It's also a highly intuitive and kind of fluid process. Like in the original recipe I'll have written down below, they tell you some certain amount of flour to put in, but at least I suppose my brand of bread making, it's an intuitive process. And you'll just feel when everything feels right in the dough. Now plop it in the bowl and cover it with your dish towel. Jiminy crickets, look at this one. Wow. You can see how you can just squish it right down in a second. So satisfying. The last things that I'm going to tell you about while I roll out this dough are 2 incredible pre-Thanksgiving releases. On November 19th of 2024, Robin Wall Kimmerer released a book called The Service Berry: Abundance and Reciprocity in the Natural World. I'm a couple of chapters in, and we know I'm a softie, but it has already moved me to tears. She just says things that make so much sense. Her books remind me of returning home to what we're meant to be. Braiding sweetgrass really reawakened me to the connection with nature that I had when I was a child that was so, first of all, intuitive, and second of all, unbeknownst to me, like a real survival instinct for my spirit. And this book is so in step with everything that I've been learning since then. And the other one, oops, don't forget to put it back in the warm spot for another hour. After that hour, you want to set your oven to 375. And then while it's preheating, ooh, jammies, that's how you know it's past midnight. I'm buttering up these pans to get them ready for, wait till you see it. If you don't already know a lot about bread, you'll probably be surprised like I was. Anyway, you can see that my strategy here is to use one butt end of your butter. Here's the big reveal after the second rise. Ooh, look at all that dough. Here comes Garrett. He just got home from playing Magic the Gathering and he's all fired up about it. He's ready to go rummage through some cards that are in this giant duffel bag over there. Shortly he goes to the living room where he can also watch a show. Wow, look at that big bread. Unbelievably thick. Oh, so the second release was on November 22nd, 2024, which was exactly when I was filming this video, but I didn't know about it then because I am not on social media. And this is a real downside of that. But anyway, one of my darling friends hooked me up. One second, look, I'm starting to be like, is this bread gonna be really big? Anyway, Kendrick Lamar GNX. I regret that I'm even filming this voiceover right now, so I can't be listening to it. It's so good. It has repeat and repeat and repeat value, unless that's just me. I don't think there's many ways that these two things are related other than the place they hold in my heart, but that's a niche I would spend some time with, crossover Kendrick and Kamara fans. Now you want to put your bread in the oven for 30 minutes to start out with. Oh my god, here comes the big reveal. What? Look at them! Are you kidding me? I was so surprised. I never realized they were gonna be this huge. I have to say I was shocked. And that's part of how I found out that they definitely needed another 10 minutes, but now is a good time to put some cheese on top of the garlic parm and put them back in the oven for another 10 minutes and voila. Ooh, look at these. Oh my god, we're gonna take them out of the oven now, and don't forget I said we'd do one last thing. We're gonna rub some butter on them. And this bread is gonna soak it right up on the outside. Let's see about the bottom. Ooh, nice and golden brown. Gonna let it cool on the rack. And you can see I'm just doing the same thing for the other ones. Just embracing getting my hands dirty, you know. Last crazy sensory experience before the actual eating of the bread. This is the plain one that was not garlic parm, and you're gonna see in a moment the exact second where I realized that I meant to leave this bread without dairy on it. I just meant to do that to be considerate to anyone who was dairy free, but I don't know that anybody who was going to these gatherings was, so I think it's gonna just be okay. Okay, I'm gonna cut it open. Let's see. I'm using a really inefficient cheese knife here. That's just to keep things interesting with myself, I guess. Look at that beautiful bread, done all the way through. Yay, I'm so proud. Here comes a tester piece, and you know there are no complaints here. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you had fun. Bye.